chapter 5 is called "What's Love Got to Do with It?" And I love the fact that our first core value that we mention every time we go through our core values is love unconditionally. And I write a chapter about love, and I kind of take on the concept of love in the workplace. And it's my belief that great leaders throughout time have always built loving and caring and nurturing environments within their teams, but we didn't call it love, right? And what I'm taking on is that why don't we? What's the matter with calling it love? And I think it's important to understand definitionally, my definition anyway of love, and my definition of love is how invested you are in somebody, in supporting them in building a life that they love. And as we work within teams, as we work together, I think it's an extraordinary opportunity for all of us to engage each other and to support each other in our own development, and support each other in our development goals, and building lives that we love. I mentioned, what I try to bring is, out of these chapters, I try to bring these little morsels that I think are maybe a little bit unique. And one of the things that I've always resonated with in relation to leadership is the concept of, how would you want your loved one to be treated in a work environment? How would you want a loved one to, what relationship would you want them to have with their boss or with their colleagues? And isn't that the environment we should all be creating? I certainly would cherish the idea that my children could work in an environment like we're trying to create here, where you show up to work and it's nurturing and it's supportive, that you go home from work more inspired and more invigorated than when you showed up in the morning. And to me, that is a loving environment. And I believe that powerful teams, dynamic teams create this. And I want to change vernacular to be okay with the fact that we can have loving and supportive relationships. And I'll just go back in time. Bob and I went through a pretty massive transition back in the 2015 moment. It wasn't a particular moment, it was a span of years. But I remember a moment for me when I was we were in a meeting in the area where we now have the couches and so on. I think it's the hockey teams area now, but we were in a meeting there, and I remember I had this epiphany, and I looked around the room, and I know that Tony was there, and JD was there, and Steph was there, and Laura and Bree and Bob, of course. And I had this epiphany that the people in that room were going to be some of my primary relationships in my whole lifetime. And that was a really powerful moment for me, because I had always had this big wall built up between me and between the people I worked with. And I think I had that wall built up because I always had this perception that maybe at some point in time I was going to have to make a decision that might put those people in a difficult situation, or maybe even in harm's way, right? So let's say we brought in private equity, or we sold, that I was going to have to make this decision and quote unquote leave people behind into a difficult spot. And when I realized that these were my primary relationships in the world, I also realized that didn't have to be the outcome. The outcome did not have to be that people would be left in a difficult spot if they opted to commit their lives to this organization. And that was a huge reframe for me. And so that's when I didn't know it at the time, but that's when I really started to imbibe the fact that we could love each other, that we could support each other, and at the end of the day, everybody was going to be okay and everybody was going to be taken care of. And so that's that's what I'm trying to bring into the context of my book is that we can be loving and we can be supportive, and so there's a concept in there. I know I've gone over my time limit here, but there's also a concept in this chapter about the creation of lumens. And I've shared this with Jody, and it's a concept where, why don't we put a metric around love? And so what I'm proposing is that we create this concept of lumens, and it's like a bank account of sorts, and you create lumens in the world. And I suppose when you misbehave, you deplete lumens. But the idea is why can't corporations? We have metrics in every crook and cranny of our companies. Why can't we create a metric to track and pay attention to that is in relation to love in the workplace, and how much love we're creating as teams and as an organization? So that's chapter 5. I'll leap into other things in the future,